Episode 7, Developing Emotional Intelligence. Welcome back, friends. I'm Barbara Schnarr, Giatti, and I am glad you're here. Every week we come together to grow and glow, learning to live more fully, more consciously, as we glow from the inside out. This is week 7 of 12 of the Giatti Glow Life Coach series. If you're following along in my 12-week life coaching book, that's fantastic. If you don't have the book, that's absolutely fine, but you will want something to write with and write on. If you'd like to get the book, just go to the About section of Giatti Glow, where you found this podcast, and there will be a link to my 12 life coach sessions for coaches and individuals book on Amazon. Or you can just go to Amazon and search for Schnarr Coach. That's Schnarr Coach. Schnarr is my maiden name, and that's what I used when I wrote these books. You can also support this podcast by buying any of the books or donating on Buy Me a Coffee. The links are in the Giatti Glow description. This week, we're diving into a topic that influences every corner of your life. How you think, how you connect, how you respond, and how you grow. It's called emotional intelligence, and it's one of those skills that once you begin to develop it, changes the way you see yourself and the world around you. Emotional intelligence, or EI, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, while also being able to navigate and influence the emotions of others. It's what allows us to stay centered in difficult moments, to listen with empathy, to respond with grace, and to build deeper, more authentic relationships. In this episode, we'll explore the core components of emotional intelligence, learn how to regulate our emotions, strengthen our empathy and communication, and understand how emotions can actually fuel motivation and resilience. By the end of this podcast, you'll have not only a better understanding of what emotional intelligence really means, but also some practical ways to start cultivating it in your everyday life. Part 1, Understanding Emotional Intelligence. Let's begin by grounding ourselves in what emotional intelligence means. It's easy to misunderstand the term and to picture someone who is either overly emotional or, at the other end of the spectrum, someone who is detached and unbothered. But emotional intelligence lives in neither extreme. Instead, it's the balance point between. It's the art of recognizing your emotions as signals, pieces of information that help you understand yourself, your environment, and your relationships. Rather than being swept away by your feelings or stuffing them down until they resurface in, let's say, unhelpful ways, emotional intelligence invites you to pause, observe, and respond with intention. At its heart, emotional intelligence is woven from 5 interconnected elements: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Think of these elements as threads that, when braided together, form a strong but flexible rope, one that supports your personal growth and strengthens your ability to navigate the world around you. Everything begins with self-awareness, the skill of tuning into your internal landscape. It's a simple ability to notice what you're feeling at any moment and to understand the story behind those emotions. When self-awareness becomes part of your daily life, you start to recognize patterns, triggers, and needs with greater clarity. From that awareness grows self-regulation, the capacity to manage your emotional responses in a way that honors your experience without becoming controlled by it. It doesn't mean pretending that everything is fine or forcing yourself to stay calm at all times. Instead, it's learning how to respond thoughtfully, taking a breath before reacting, choosing patience over impulse, or giving yourself space when you're overwhelmed. Self-regulation is less about perfection and more about stability. Next comes motivation. But this is a deeper kind of motivation than what most people think of. It isn't about external rewards or pressure from others. Instead, it's the internal drive that emerges when your emotions, values, and goals all point in the same direction. When you nurture this form of motivation, you develop resilience, the ability to persist through challenges because you're guided by something meaningful within you. Emotional intelligence also relies heavily on empathy, the skill of stepping into someone else's emotional world without losing sight of your own. Empathy asks you to listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. It's about understanding where someone is coming from, even when their feelings are different than yours. It builds bridges, deepens trust, and softens conflicts. And finally, social skills tie everything together. These skills help you express yourself clearly, navigate conversations with ease, and collaborate with others in ways that feel natural and respectful. When your social skills grow, you become more effective at resolving misunderstandings, maintaining healthy boundaries, and creating relationships that feel supportive rather than draining. Emotional intelligence matters because it enriches nearly every part of life. It helps you communicate more clearly, connect more authentically, and move through challenges with greater steadiness. It doesn't make you immune to stress or conflict, but it gives you a stronger internal compass to guide you through these moments. You're no longer ruled by fleeting emotions. Instead, you learn to partner with them, using their insight to make wiser choices. So let's do a little reflection here. Before moving on, let's take a little pause. Imagine the 5 elements of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation and empathy, and social skills. And make them kind of arranged like at 5 points on a star. Now, ask yourself, where am I today with each of these? If you were to give yourself a rating from 1 to 5 in each area, simply just an honest snapshot rather than a judgment, what would those numbers look like? This moment is not about finding the right answer. It's about acknowledging the truth of where you are. You might feel really strong in empathy because you easily understand others, but maybe you struggle to regulate your own emotions and when things get really stressful. Or perhaps motivation feels steady and natural, but social interactions leave you drained and uncertain. Whatever your reflections reveal, allow them to be nothing more than information, a starting point. Choose just one area that you'd like to nurture a little more this week. Emotional intelligence isn't a fixed trait that you either have or don't have. It's a living skill set that grows with curiosity, practice, and compassion towards yourself. And every small shift you make strengthens the way you show up, both for yourself and for the people around you. Part 2, developing self-awareness. Self-awareness is the doorway through which all emotional growth begins. It's the ability to notice what is happening inside you while it's happening, the subtle shifts in mood, the thoughts that follow those emotions, and the behaviors that emerge as a result. When you cultivate self-awareness, you begin to understand not just what you feel, but why you feel it. And that understanding becomes the foundation for making choices that are intentional rather than reactive. Think back to a moment when you felt overwhelmed, irritated, or frustrated. Maybe someone's comment struck a nerve. Maybe the day unfolded in ways you didn't expect. In those moments, self-awareness is the internal pause where you step back and recognize, I'm feeling angry right now. I'm feeling anxious. Something here is affecting me. Instead of judging yourself or jumping to self-criticism, you meet your emotions with curiosity. You ask questions, not to fix anything immediately, but to simply understand what's happening beneath the surface. One of the most effective ways to strengthen this awareness is through mindfulness. Mindfulness invites you to pay attention to your inner experience with openness rather than resistance. It's the practice of observing your thoughts, sensations, and emotions in real time without trying to push them away or reshape them. Over time, this observation helps you recognize the patterns that shape your emotional life. You start noticing the first flutter of irritation before it spirals into anger, or the early rumble of worry before it grows into full anxiety. This recognition alone creates space. And in that space, you gain the freedom to respond rather than react. Keeping an emotional journal can deepen this process even further. At the end of each day, you can write down what you felt, what sparked those emotions, and how you responded. As the days go by, trends begin to surface. You might discover that certain environments drain your energy almost every time, or that particular interactions consistently make you feel inspired and grounded. These patterns become signposts, pointing you towards what supports your emotional well-being and what challenges it. It's also worth remembering that self-awareness doesn't develop in isolation. Feedback from others can offer insights that you may not have noticed on your own. Someone close to you, a trusted friend, a partner, or colleague, might gently point out how you tend to withdraw when stressed or become overly accommodating when you're anxious. Now, these observations aren't always comfortable to hear, but they can be incredibly illuminating. They help you see parts of yourself that are harder to catch from the inside. To begin to strengthen this skill, consider ending each day with a small reflection ritual. Take a few moments to ask yourself, what emotions did I experience today? What brought these emotions to the surface? How did I respond? You don't have to write long passages, even a few sentences can help. This practice builds layer upon layer of awareness until checking in with yourself becomes as natural as breathing. Part 3. Learning self-regulation. Once you begin to understand your emotions more clearly, the next step is learning how to regulate them, not by shutting them down or pretending they don't exist, but by guiding them in a direction that supports your well-being. Emotional regulation is what allows you to stay grounded even when your inner world feels stirred up. It gives you the power to choose your response rather than being carried away by instinctive reactions. Imagine a situation where a colleague unexpectedly criticizes your work. In that moment, your body might respond before your mind has time to catch up. Maybe your chest tightens and your jaw clenches, or maybe a flash of irritation rises. Your first impulse might be to snap back, or defend yourself, or to shut down or withdraw. Self-regulation is that pause, the breath you take before the words leave your mouth. It's the recognition that although your emotional reaction is valid, your response doesn't have to be dictated by that split-second feeling. Instead of reacting defensively, you might choose to ask a clarifying question or even simply say, "Let me think about that." A single moment of intentionality can choose the entire direction of the conversation. At its essence, regulating your emotions means creating space between what you feel and what you do. It's developing the capacity to be with your emotions without letting them run the show. Simple tools can help you build this space. Deep breathing can calm your nervous system enough for your thoughts to settle. Grounding techniques, like feeling your feet on the floor or noticing the weight of your body, can pull you out of spiraling thoughts. Even something as small as silently counting to 3 before you respond can shift your emotional state just enough to let clarity rise to the surface. Self-regulation is also deeply connected to your values. When you choose to act in alignment with what matters to you most, things like kindness, honesty, fairness, patience, you reinforce your emotional stability. For example, you can feel angry and still choose to speak respectfully. You can feel embarrassed and still choose to be honest. You can feel overwhelmed and still choose to ask for support rather than withdrawing. Responding in ways that align with your values doesn't make your emotions less authentic. It makes your actions more powerful. And as you strengthen this skill, you'll notice you begin to feel more centered in challenging moments. You become less reactive and more thoughtful. Instead of being swept up in emotional waves, you learn how to ride them with steadiness and even grace. That doesn't mean you never get upset or frustrated. It simply means that those emotions don't control your next move. If you'd like to practice this week, try bringing awareness to 3 emotional triggers you encounter often. Maybe it's feeling ignored in a conversation, or running late, or receiving criticism. Write down one strategy for supporting yourself in each of these moments. Perhaps it's taking a deep breath before responding, or reframing your initial interpretation, or stepping outside for a brief reset before you speak. Every small act of regulation strengthens your emotional resilience and helps you cultivate a calmer, more intentional way of responding to life. Part 4, cultivating empathy. Empathy is the point where emotional intelligence begins to extend beyond your own internal world. It's a skill that allows you to truly understand another person's emotional experience, not just by observing it, but by feeling it in a way that connects you to their humanity. When empathy is present, conversations deepen, conflicts soften, and relationships become more meaningful. It creates a bridge between people, even when their circumstances and perspectives differ. There are several layers of empathy, each one offering a different way of connecting. Cognitive empathy is the ability to intellectually understand what someone is going through. You can take their point of view, even if you haven't lived it yourself. It's a rational understanding. It's the mental ability to say, I get why you feel that way. Emotional empathy takes us a step further by inviting you to actually feel the emotion the other person is experiencing. When someone shares their joy, anxiety, or sorrow, you can sense it within yourself as though your emotional worlds are briefly linked. This creates profound closeness. And then there's compassionate empathy, which combines understanding and feeling with a desire to offer support. It's empathy that moves you towards action, the instinct to comfort or help or simply stand beside someone in their experience. One of the most effective ways to nourish empathy is through active listening. This means giving another person your full presence, not planning your reply, not analyzing, not judging, but truly listening. When someone feels fully heard, they feel valued. After they finish speaking, reflecting their feelings back to them can be incredibly healing. You might say, it sounds like you felt overlooked when that happened, or I can hear how much that upset you. These simple reflections show that their experience landed with you, that you didn't just hear their words, but that you understood their emotional tone. This kind of presence creates emotional safety and the foundation of genuine connection. Perspective taking can also strengthen empathy in everyday life. The next time you find yourself irritated or confused by someone's behavior, pause and gently ask yourself, what might they be feeling right now? What might their day have been like before this moment? That brief pause rehumanizes the situation. It softens criticism and opens the door to understanding. Sometimes you may discover that what felt personal wasn't personal at all. It was simply a reflection of someone else's struggle. Empathy doesn't just benefit the people around you, it enriches your own emotional landscape as well. It softens your responses, it widens your perspective, and it helps you meet others with compassion instead of defensiveness. When you approach the world with empathy, you create more warmth in your interactions, and that warmth often returns back to you. If you'd like to practice this, choose your next meaningful conversation as an opportunity. Slow down and give the other person your full attention. Listen not only to their words, but to the tone behind them, the expressions on their face, the pauses where their emotions live. When they finish, gently summarize what you heard to confirm your understanding. Even a simple reflection can leave a lasting impression, showing them that they are seen, heard, and valued. Part 5. Communicating with emotional awareness. Emotional intelligence becomes especially visible in the way we communicate. Communication is so much more than exchanging words. It's the emotional undertone, the intention behind our speech, and the openness we bring into a conversation. When you communicate with emotional awareness, your words land softer, your connections deepen, and misunderstandings become far less frequent. It's not about being perfect with your words. It's about being present with your emotions and attuned to the emotions of the person in front of you. One tool for emotionally intelligent communication is using I statements. These statements create a space for dialogue instead of defensiveness. When you say, I feel frustrated when meetings start late, you're sharing your experience rather than accusing or attacking. It keeps the focus on the emotion, not the person. This shift helps others understand your perspective without feeling blamed or cornered, making it easier for them to respond with empathy rather than defensiveness. Another important part of communication happens beyond words. Nonverbal cues, your tone, posture, gestures, and facial expressions, convey emotions even more loudly than your sentences do. You can say, I'm fine. But if your shoulders are tense and your voice is tight, people will hear what you're not saying. Emotional awareness means noticing the messages your body is sending and aligning those signals with what you truly intend to communicate. When your verbal and nonverbal messages match, your communication becomes clearer, more honest, and more trustworthy. Difficult conversations are where emotional awareness becomes absolutely essential. In those moments, emotions often rise to the surface quickly, like fear or frustration or disappointment or defensiveness. Instead of letting those feelings dominate the conversation, you can ground yourself with a slow breath and remind yourself that your intention is resolution, understanding, and collaboration. Keeping the focus on the issue rather than the person helps prevent conversations from becoming personal attacks. Emotional intelligence doesn't mean avoiding hard topics. It means approaching them with clarity, compassion, and steadiness. A key part of this is balancing empathy with assertiveness. You can honor your own needs while still respecting the needs of others. Assertiveness doesn't mean being harsh or forceful. It's simply communicating your truth with clarity and calm. When paired with empathy, assertiveness becomes a powerful tool for creating conversations where everyone feels heard and valued. If you want to practice this in a real, grounded way, choose one meaningful conversation this week. It could be with a friend or a partner or a colleague or even a family member. Go into the conversation with the intention of expressing yourself clearly and listening deeply. Notice how the exchange feels when you slow down, stay present, and communicate with awareness. You may discover that even this small shift in emotional presence can transform the quality of the connection. Part 6. Finding motivation through emotion. Emotional intelligence doesn't just help you understand or manage your feelings, it also helps you use them. Emotions carry energy, and when you learn to channel that energy towards something meaningful, motivation stops being a struggle and starts becoming a natural inner force. Instead of relying on external pressure, deadlines, or other people's expectations, you begin to move from them to a place of alignment and purpose. And this is where motivation becomes sustainable, grounded, and personal. A powerful way to tap into this emotional motivation is by setting goals that genuinely reflect your values. When what you're working towards resonates with who you are, you don't have to drag yourself into action. Your emotions pull you forward. Think about the difference between pursuing a goal because you think you should versus pursuing something because it lights you up on the inside. The first feels heavy and draining. The second feels energizing, even when it requires effort. Cultivating a growth mindset further strengthens this connection. Instead of viewing challenges as signs that you're not capable, a growth mindset invites you to see them as opportunities to expand, adapt, and learn. When something doesn't go the way you had hoped, you can pause and ask, what is this moment teaching me? Every setback becomes a stepping stone rather than a roadblock, and your emotions shift from discouragement to curiosity and determination. Over time, this mindset builds resilience and a deeper sense of self-trust. And then there's the small wins. the achievements that often go unnoticed but matter tremendously. These moments of progress, however tiny, deserve recognition. And when you pause to celebrate them, you reinforce your effort and strengthen your internal motivation. You remind yourself that you're moving forward and that your actions are making a difference, that growth is happening. This sense of progress creates momentum, and momentum is one of the most powerful motivators of all. If you'd like to put this into practice, choose one small goal for this week, something that feels emotionally meaningful rather than overwhelming. Maybe it's organizing a space that brings you peace, or reaching out to someone you've wanting to be reconnected with, or taking a single step towards a long-term goal. Once you choose your goal, ask yourself which emotions you can draw from to support it. Maybe it's the pride you'll feel afterward, or the excitement of starting something new, or the curiosity of seeing what you're capable of. Let the emotions guide you, fuel you, and remind you why this goal matters. Part 7. Building resilience through emotional intelligence. Resilience is emotional intelligence in motion. It's the living, breathing expression of everything you've been learning. The ability to bend without breaking, to feel deeply without being overwhelmed, and to find your footing, even when the ground shifts beneath you. Resilience isn't about staying positive all the time or pretending you're unaffected by challenges. It's about acknowledging the difficulty, allowing yourself to feel what you feel, and choosing to move forward in a way that honors both your emotions and your strength. One of the most powerful tools for building resilience is reframing, shifting the way you interpret a difficult situation. When something goes wrong, it's natural to fall into the why me mindset. But reframing invites a different kind of question. What is this teaching me? Or how can I grow from this? This shift transforms you from a passive recipient of hardship into an active participant in your own evolution. It doesn't erase the challenge, but it changes how you carry it. Instead of feeling powerless, you begin to feel capable. Instead of feeling stuck, you begin to see possibilities. Another essential part of resilience is leaning into your support network. Emotional intelligence helps you recognize when you need connection, comfort, and encouragement. There's a strength to knowing when to call a friend, when to let someone listen, when to rest, when to give yourself permission to pause. Resilience isn't built in isolation. It's reinforced by people who remind you of your own resilience when you're too tired or too discouraged to see it yourself. And then there's optimism, the belief that you can face whatever comes your way. Optimism is often misunderstood as blind positivity, but true optimism is grounded. It doesn't deny reality or minimize pain. Instead, it says, this is hard, but I trust myself to navigate through it. It's a mindset that allows you to hold both struggle and hope at the same time. That combination is incredibly stabilizing. It helps keep you balanced, open, and moving forward, even in uncertainty. So take a moment to reflect on a recent challenge. It doesn't have to be something dramatic. Even small disruptions can reveal a lot about how you cope. How did you handle it emotionally? What thoughts surfaced? What choices did you make in that moment? And most importantly, what might you do differently next time you move through it, maybe with a little more calm, clarity, or compassion with yourself? Every challenge you've faced, whether big or small, has added a layer to your inner strength, even when you didn't recognize it at the time. Resilience has been quietly building within you, preparing you for whatever comes next. Part 8. Emotional intelligence in relationships. Emotional intelligence becomes especially powerful when it's applied within relationships. It's a skill that helps us build trust, navigate conflict, and strengthen our bonds with what matters most. Relationships thrive not just on what we say, but on how we make others feel. And emotional intelligence shapes that experience in profound ways. A good place to begin is by paying close attention to emotional cues. These cues are often subtle, maybe changes in tone, shifts in posture, unusual silence, or even an energy that feels slightly off. People communicate their inner world in ways that go far beyond spoken words. And when you tune into those signals, you begin to understand them on a deeper level. Responding thoughtfully to these cues, asking gentle questions, and showing genuine curiosity allows you to meet others where they truly are, rather than where you assume them to be. Gratitude is another cornerstone of emotionally intelligent relationships. It doesn't have to be elaborate or dramatic. Even a simple, "Thank you for taking the time," or "I appreciate you noticing that," can create a moment of connection. Gratitude adds warmth to everyday interactions and gradually shifts relationships towards a dynamic filled with appreciation rather than expectation. It affirms the other person's efforts and signals that you value the role they play in your life. Boundaries also play an essential role in emotionally healthy relationships. Setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away or creating distance. It's about cultivating mutual respect and ensuring that the relationship remains balanced and sustainable. Emotional intelligence helps you express your limits with clarity and kindness. When boundaries are communicated thoughtfully, they don't create walls, they create pathways to a more honest and meaningful connection. So take a moment this week to focus on one relationship you would like to deepen or nurture. Reflect on what that person might need emotionally, and consider how you can bring more empathy, patience, or honesty into that connection. Sometimes the most significant shifts come from the smallest gestures: an attentive moment, a thoughtful question, or a sincere expression of appreciation. Over time, these small moments create the kind of relationships that feel supportive, secure, and deeply fulfilling. Part 9, wrapping it up. Developing emotional intelligence is a lifelong journey. It's not something to master overnight. It's something you grow into, day by day, conversation by conversation, reflection by reflection. The more you practice awareness, empathy, and emotional regulation, the more peaceful your inner world becomes. Your relationships deepen, your communication becomes more authentic, and you start living in a place of understanding rather than reaction. So, as you go throughout this week, notice your emotions. Notice how they move through you, how they influence your choices, and how they connect you to others. Use them as guides, not obstacles. So, thank you for joining me this week. Next week, we'll be talking about creating healthy habits. So, until next time, keep practicing awareness, keep listening both to others and to your own heart. Have a great week. Giatti Glow is powered by the Life Coach Store, which is owned by me, Barb Giatti. On my website, you can find all kinds of great resources for over 20 types of wellness coaches. Check out thelifecoach.store for more information.